This is Teaching and Learning Assessment by Lewis Pinchen. In this lesson you'll learn about the different organisations in the UFC and have a brief introduction to other things regarding MMA. The lesson aims and objectives are to simplify the different recruitment methods for the UFC and to also discuss specific fighting organisations outside the UFC and evaluate the knowledge and understanding of a class around the different promotions and to evaluate what they have learned throughout this lesson. Now moving on to the starter task. The starter task is simply you have three names in front of you. You've got Cage Warriors, Invicta FC and LFA. The class has to discuss what they know from these three names. Can they kind of have a guess of what they are? Can they have a in-depth conversation what they are, see what their knowledge is? This is for me as a lecturer to see what they know and what they don't know, and how can I help develop their knowledge and see if they can relate to organisations. Like the most popular organisation is UFC, and I can relate to that because I can say to them Cage Warriors is a British organisation that can that is like a feeder for the UFC, so all the best British fighters finally get a contract with UFC maybe 2-3 years into their career if they've won some sort of title. Invicta FC is a women's organisation which UFC also uses a feeder, which is also on UFC Fight Pass, so they kind of market that organisation so they can get the best women fighters into the UFC, as MMA is probably one of the best sports there is to include female participation in sport. So LFA is a mixture of both, that you can get women fighters and MMA fighters in there. LFA is predominantly American based around America and Canada. They have got some UFC champions to this day from that organisation. So they've been a massive they've been a massive help in terms of getting the best fighters in the UFC and help with UFC promotions. For example, Cage Warriors, as you've all probably heard of, have produced a fighter like Conor McGregor. Invicta FC would have been Amanda Nunes, which you've probably heard of. And LFA have been fighters like Valentina Shevchenko. So two women fighters there who've really helped women MMA and MMA as a sport come together and become more popular. Now moving on to the bingo task. The bingo task again is to find out the knowledge of the class. Obviously you have the bingo sheet to be 4x4. You can only get 8 names in there, and once I read a name out, if a person in the class has the name, now their task is individually to have a guess, or if they know it, even better, of what a person or the organisation might be. For example, I'll just pick one out of there. I'll go with Derek Lewis. He's a heavyweight in the UFC, former heavyweight contender. Dana White's Contender Series, what was run by the UFC president, who is Dana White, who funds an organisation to get the best fighters in. He goes around the country recruiting these fighters, and he has men going around him to assist him doing that. Michelle Waterson, former Invicta champion, as I said before, she has fought in the UFC for, I would say, 10 years now. She has been a real pioneer in terms of getting women's MMA to the very top of the sport. Jai Herbert, a one from Cage Warriors, English fighter from Birmingham, come up through the ranks. He's got a fight signed very soon. He looks like he's going to be the new contender for the pioneer for British fighters. Anthony Johnson, obviously signed with Bellator now. He used to be he's been in many different weights in UFC. He's been welterweight, middleweight, heavyweight. He's been a real draw for the UFC. He's been a one with spectacular finishes and really turns up to fight. Moving on to the memory game, so this is sort of the main task of this lesson. So what you do is I'll assign the groups, so you get into groups of 3 or 4. As I mentioned before, I would have evaluated the class to see what the knowledge of MMA is, then fairly put them into teams, so the teams are very even, and I feel that the strugglers are benefiting from the strivers. So going into this teacher learner assessment, judging from previous weeks, the groups should be 3 to 4, but I'm just going to take a guess, and there should be teams of 3, judging by previous attendance. In your group, you'll get given an organisation to study. One person at a time goes to the worksheet and memorises as many things as possible in 20 seconds without taking any notes. So once the 20 seconds is up, the person will feed back to the team and put down as much notes as possible. So it's getting the information stored in your head, and what's your memory like. So it's like getting the students really engaged and really challenging their memory. Each person gets to go twice, so make each 20 seconds count. After the game has finished, your group will be given 10 minutes to gather some notes together and present your findings of the specific organisation. The team who digests the information best and has the best presentation will win the prize. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to sort of let the students decide who has done the best presentation. But I don't want them to pick because your mate or it's your best friend. I want them to give me a good explanation why you think they should be the best team. I just don't say, oh, because he's really good. I want some like an in-depth answer. And if I agree, then I will get the final say of who will win the prize and who most deserves it. Not just I'm really judging it off your presentation skills, not just your knowledge and how well you've presented and how far you've come throughout this lesson. This is the first example of one of the sheets the teams will be given to memorise off. So a good tactic for the team might be is to maybe go look at the first fact and go down. For example, what is Invicta FC? The first event was in Kansas City, and go down. A fighter that has held titles in Invicta FC and UFC is Carter Esparza, who is set to fight another title fight in 2021. That could be a good example. Then you could go down again. Invicta FC specialises in women fighters. There's no other organisation that just specialises in women fighters. The strawweight champion is Kanko Murata, which is who is between 106 and 115 pounds. Or you could go across. Example, then go across. It's the world's largest female fight organisation, and then it's a mixed martial arts organisation. It depends what the team feels comfortable with. I suppose that's a conversation you're going to have in your team. So it's going to be a lot of teamwork. The reason I've implemented teamwork is it's a transferable skill. So from this lesson, they'll be gaining transferable skills that can go across into any job in the future. If you want to be, I don't know, anything really. If you want to be a sports coach, if you want to be a teacher, if you want to be, I don't know, if you want to work in Tesco's, all you need teamwork. It's a transferable skill, and it's a vital part of this lesson. So moving on to Cage Warriors, so a bit like Invicta FC, it's the same format, different organisation. What I've done is, what a thing will probably jump out is there's not as much facts on here as there is to Invicta, but what I've done is I've made the structure all different, so it's hard to digest information when everything's staggered around and close to each other. I just feel like Cage Warriors will be harder to look at information saying, oh, have I got a certain one, like it's taking place in over 12 countries. besides to Invicta FC, where you have like a nice structure, you can read up and down, you can read sideways, you can read across, or whatever you want to do. It'll be a lot harder to digest information from Cage Warriors compared to Invicta FC. What I've done is exactly the same as Cage Warriors to the LFA. I've mixed it up a bit. I know there's not as enough. Again, there's not as much facts as it is on Invicta FC, but I feel as a student it'll be harder to digest information and look around to see what I have and haven't got. And it'll be interesting at the end of the lesson to see who's at the overall winner and who has the most facts on the sheet, and who would digest the information at the end and has the understanding to go on and explain what LFA is, or what Cage Warriors is, what Invicta FC is in detail. Yeah. Finally, moving on to the end of lesson task. This task is an adapted version of heads down, thumbs up. Obviously, it's heads down, thumbs up. There's two people are on. Instead of the person touching the thumb, the person gets a little piece of paper on the desk. The person who was chosen has to give I'll give them a question, and what they have to do is explain the answer in detail. For example, if I ask them what Conor McGregor is, what Invicta FC is, what they've learned, obviously I'm going to give them something relevant to the task and what's been learned. I'm not just going to throw them in the deep end and let them explain that they know nothing about. Then it'll be like a repeating process. The person will turn around, they put the piece of paper on the desk, and then the person who has to guess it, then I'll give them a question. It's like a repeating process. It is an adapted game of heads down, thumbs up due to COVID-19. Obviously, when using the piece of paper instead of touching the thumb, so we don't want to spread any germs, to make sure everyone's safe and everyone feels comfortable doing the task. Thanks for listening for Teaching and Learn Assessment Introduction to MMA Organizations by Pinchen. Yep, thank you.